The transport shuttle touched down at Seoul Spaceport with a soft thud. Lee Da-bin looked through the small window at the busy terminal. People walked everywhere. Families hugged. Children ran around laughing. Everything looked so normal, so peaceful. She picked up her old military bag. It was heavy, but she was used to carrying heavy things. Inside the bag was everything she owned after 3 years of fighting in space. 3 years of protecting human colonies from alien attacks. 3 years of war. Da-bin walked down the shuttle ramp. Her boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. Other passengers pushed past her, eager to see their families. She had no one waiting for her. Her parents died in an alien raid 5 years ago. That was why she joined the military. The spaceport was huge and bright. Too bright after the dark military ships she lived on. People talked loudly. Children cried. Announcements echoed from speakers. Da-bin felt her muscles tense. Too much noise. Too many people. She needed to find a quiet corner. But first, she had business to finish. The transition office was on the 3rd floor. Da-bin took the stairs instead of the elevator. Elevators were traps if something went wrong. Old habits from the war. A young man behind the desk looked up when she entered. He had soft hands and clean clothes. He had never seen battle. "Name?" he asked without looking at her properly. "Lee Da-bin, Lieutenant, service number 4-47-92. The man typed on his computer. His eyes grew wide as he read her file. You were in the Outer Rim battles?" "Yes." "Against the Krathan raiders?" "Yes." The man stared at her now, really looked at her. He saw the thin scar across her left cheek, the way she stood straight like a soldier, the old burn mark on her right hand from a plasma weapon. "It says here you saved the whole colony ship, over 8,000 people." Da-bin said nothing. She did not like talking about the war. "Your military service gives you a full scholarship," the man continued. "Seoul National University. You can study anything you want." He handed her a data pad with university information. Da-bin looked at the pictures of students sitting in gardens, reading books, smiling at cameras. They all looked so young, so happy, so safe. "Classes start next week," the man said. "There are orientation programs to help veterans adjust." "I do not need help adjusting," Da-bin said quietly. But as she walked through the city streets toward the university, she wondered if that was true. Everything felt wrong. Cars moved too fast. Buildings were too tall. People walked without watching for danger. They did not scan rooftops for snipers. They did not check corners for ambushes. A group of teenagers walked past her, laughing about something on their phones. One boy complained that his biggest problem was a difficult test tomorrow. Da-bin remembered when her biggest problem was keeping her squad alive, while alien ships bombed their position for 6 hours straight. The university gates were made of old stone and metal. Students walked through them carrying books and talking about parties and dating. Da-bin followed them, feeling like she was entering another world. She found the dormitory office and got her room key. The woman behind the desk was friendly but asked too many questions. "What will you study?" "I have not decided." "Where are you from?" "Everywhere. Nowhere." "Do you have friends here?" Da-bin did not answer that one. Her room was small but clean. One bed, one desk, one chair. It reminded her of military quarters except it had a window with curtains. She had not seen curtains in 3 years. Da-bin sat on the bed and looked at the university information again. Tomorrow she would register for classes. Tomorrow she would try to be a student instead of a soldier. She put her military bag in the closet but kept it packed. Just in case. In war, you always had to be ready to move fast. Outside her window, students played music and talked late into the night. They sounded so free, so innocent. Da-bin had fought to protect that innocence. Now she had to learn how to live with it. She closed her eyes but did not sleep. Soldiers learned to sleep light. Even safe soldiers. Even soldiers who were trying to stop being soldiers. Tomorrow would be her first day as a civilian. Her first day trying to fit into the world she had fought to save. Dabin's first class was Galactic Politics. She arrived early and chose a seat in the back corner. From there, she could see the whole room and both exits. The professor looked like he had never left Earth. His clothes were too clean. His hands were too soft. Today we discuss human-alien relations after the war, Professor Nam said as students filled the room. Dabin watched the other students. They were all younger than her. Most looked like they came from rich families. Clean clothes, expensive bags, perfect teeth. They talked about weekend parties and new movies. None of them had scars. One boy sat in the front row. He had styled hair and a designer jacket. The way he sat told Dabin he thought he was important. She had seen officers like that. The kind who gave orders but never fought. The Krathan Empire attacked our colonies for 5 years, Professor Nam continued. Our military response was complicated. Dabin knew about complicated. She remembered the burning colony ships, the screaming civilians, the dead soldiers floating in space. Nothing complicated about protecting innocent people. A girl raised her hand. My father says the military used too much force. Maybe we could have talked to the aliens instead of fighting. Dabin felt her jaw tighten. Talk to the Krathan. The same aliens who turned entire cities into glass, who took human prisoners and tortured them for fun. Interesting point, Professor Nam said. Anyone else have thoughts on military tactics? Dabin raised her hand slowly. The professor looked surprised. Yes, miss. Lee Dabin. I was there. In the Outer Rim battles. The room went quiet. Students turned to stare at her. Some looked curious. Others looked doubtful. I see, Professor Nam said carefully. What was your experience? The Krathan do not talk. They take what they want. They kill everyone else. Our military saved millions of human lives. The boy in the front row turned around. His name tag said Choi Minwoo. He had a smug smile. That sounds very dramatic, Minwoo said. But how do we know that is true? You could have been anywhere. Maybe just on some safe supply ship. Other students started whispering. Dabin heard some of them giggle. I was on the front lines, Dabin said quietly. My squad held Defense Station 7 for 18 hours while civilians escaped. Easy to say, Minwoo replied. Anyone can claim to be a hero, especially when there is no way to check. More whispers, more giggles. Dabin felt heat rise in her chest, the same feeling she got before combat. But this was not combat. These were just children who knew nothing about war. The military reports are public record, she said. Reports can lie, Minwoo said with a shrug. My father works in government. He says lots of soldiers make up stories to get benefits. Professor Nam cleared his throat. Perhaps we should move on to other topics. But Minwoo was not finished. I think we need to be careful about military propaganda in academic settings. Some people will say anything for attention. Several students nodded. Dabin looked around the room. These people did not believe her. They thought she was lying about the war, about watching her friends die, about the nightmares that still woke her up. After class, Dabin walked out quickly. She heard students talking behind her. Did you see her scars? Probably fake. You can buy those at costume shops. My cousin says lots of fake veterans try to get into universities. She looks crazy. Did you see how she sat in the corner? Dabin kept walking. She had faced alien weapons that could melt steel. She had fought in the vacuum of space. She had held dying soldiers in her arms. But somehow, these soft civilian students made her feel smaller than any enemy ever had. She found an empty bathroom and looked in the mirror. The scar on her face was real. The burn on her hand was real. The pain in her chest when she remembered her dead squad was real. But to these people, she was just making up stories. Dabin splashed cold water on her face. Tomorrow she had 3 more classes. 3 more chances to prove she belonged here. 3 more battles to fight. She was used to fighting. But this was a different kind of war. Kim So-ra waited outside the classroom door. She had watched the whole argument between De-bin and Min-woo. She had seen how the other students treated the older girl. It made her angry. "Excuse me," So-ra called as De-bin walked past. "Can I talk to you?" De-bin stopped but did not turn around. "What do you want?" "I study alien species. I have read about the Outer Rim battles. What you said in class was right." De-bin turned slowly. So-ra was small and thin. She wore thick glasses and carried too many books. She looked like the kind of student other students ignored. "You believe me?" De-bin asked. "Yes, I have read the military reports. The real ones, not the simple versions in our textbooks. Your unit saved colony ship Harmony. 8,312 people." De-bin stared at her. No one had mentioned the exact number before. "Why do you know this?" De-bin asked. "Because I care about truth. And because I know what it feels like when people think you are stupid." So-ra adjusted her heavy glasses. "Would you like to study together? I have a group that meets in the library." De-bin hesitated. She was not good with groups anymore. Too many people made her nervous. But So-ra seemed different from the others. "Okay," De-bin said. The study group met that evening. 5 students sat around a large table covered with books and computers. When De-bin arrived, the talking stopped. Everyone stared at her. "This is De-bin," So-ra announced. "She is going to help us with our project on interspecies diplomacy." A boy named Woo Jin whispered something to the girl next to him. The girl giggled and looked away. De-bin felt her stomach tighten. This was a mistake. "What is our topic?" De-bin asked, trying to sound normal. "We are studying how humans and aliens can work together after the war," So-ra explained. "But everyone else thinks we should focus on peaceful solutions only." "Peace is good," said a girl named Hai-jin. "Fighting never solves anything." De-bin looked at her. Hai-jin had perfectly painted nails and expensive jewelry. She had never seen a destroyed colony, never held a dying child in her arms. "Sometimes fighting is the only choice," De-bin said quietly. "That is exactly the problem," Woo Jin said. "Military people always think violence is the answer. We need fresh thinking. Academic thinking." "You want to exclude military experience from a project about war?" De-bin asked. "We want objective analysis," Hai-jin said, "not emotional war stories." De-bin felt the familiar heat building in her chest. She started to stand up, ready to leave. But So-ra put a gentle hand on her arm. "Wait," So-ra said. "I found something interesting today." She opened her computer and showed them a video. It was a news report about the Battle of Kepler Station. De-bin recognized the footage. She had been there. "This report says human forces used excessive aggression." So-ra read. "But look at this." She clicked another file. Internal military communications filled the screen. Orders to protect civilian evacuation ships. Reports of alien forces targeting hospitals and schools. Records of human soldiers refusing to retreat because civilians were still in danger. The news reports were wrong. So-ra continued. The military was protecting innocent people. They were heroes. Woo Jin frowned at the screen. "How did you get these files?" "Public military archives. You just have to know where to look." Hai-jin crossed her arms. "Military propaganda is everywhere. You cannot trust their version of events." "What about their version?" So-ra asked. She pointed to another video. This one showed alien refugees thanking human soldiers, families whose lives had been saved, children who drew pictures of human ships protecting their homes. "These aliens do not think humans were too aggressive," So-ra said. "They think humans saved them." The group sat in uncomfortable silence. De-bin watched their faces change as they realized their simple ideas about war were wrong. Min-woo appeared at their table like a shadow. De-bin had not heard him approach. She was losing her edge. Still spreading your war stories? Minwoo asked with a cold smile. We are studying facts, Sora said firmly. Facts according to the military. Very reliable source. Minwoo looked directly at Dabin. Tell me, hero, what exactly did you do that was so important? Dabin met his eyes. She saw challenge there. Disrespect. The same look she had seen in enemy officers before they surrendered. I kept people like you safe, she said simply. Minwoo laughed. People like me do not need protection from imaginary threats. The threats were real. The people who died were real. The families I saved were real. Prove it. 3 weeks passed. Dabin tried to focus on her studies, but the whispers followed her everywhere. Students pointed at her in hallways. Some took pictures with their phones when they thought she was not looking. Minwoo's friends spread stories about her. They said she was crazy. They said she made up her military service. They said veterans like her were dangerous and should not be allowed in regular classes. Dabin spent most of her time in the library. It was quiet there, peaceful. She could read without people staring at her scars. One night, she was studying late for a history exam. The library was almost empty. Only a few students remained at distant tables. Sora had gone home hours ago. Dabin liked the silence. It reminded her of night watch on the space stations. The calm before battle. The time when soldiers could think and pray and remember why they fought. Then the sirens started. Loud, sharp, urgent. The same sound that meant incoming enemy fire. Dabin's body reacted before her mind could stop it. She dropped her books and rolled behind the nearest bookshelf. Her training kicked in automatically. Assess the situation. Find cover. Locate exits. Count enemies. Plan response. But there were no enemies. Just confused students looking around and asking what was happening. Emergency drill, announced a voice over the speakers. Please evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. The other students walked calmly toward the exits. They talked and laughed like this was no big deal. Just another boring safety drill. Dabin could not move. Her heart pounded like a war drum. Her hands shook. Sweat covered her face. The bookshelf felt like the only safe thing in the world. The sirens kept wailing. In her mind, she was back on Defense Station 7. Enemy ships closing in. Plasma fire lighting up space. Her squad calling for orders while civilians screamed in the background. We need to hold the line, she whispered to herself. Protect the evacuation ships. Do not let them through. But there were no evacuation ships. No enemy fighters. No squad to command. Just books and empty tables and the smell of old paper. The sirens stopped. The library became silent again. Dabin stayed behind the bookshelf, pressed against the wall. Her body would not obey her mind. Her training said danger was everywhere. Security guards found her there an hour later, still crouched behind the books, still watching the exits, still ready for a battle that was not coming. Miss, are you okay? Asked an older guard. He had kind eyes and gray hair. Dabin looked up at him. Reality slowly returned. She was not on a space station. She was not in combat. She was just a student having a breakdown in a university library. I am fine, she lied. The drill ended a long time ago. You can go back to your room now. Dabin stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak. The guard watched her with concern, but did not ask more questions. She gathered her books and walked to the exit. In the hallway, she saw a group of students with their phones out. They had been recording her, taking videos of the crazy veteran girl hiding from a simple fire drill. By morning, the videos were everywhere on social media. War hero freaks out over nothing. Veteran girl loses it during drill. Is this who we want in our schools? Minwoo shared the videos on every platform he could find. He added his own comments. This is what happens when we let mentally unstable people into normal society. She is clearly unfit for academic life. Dabin read the comments on her phone. Hundreds of students she had never met called her names. They said she was broken. They said she was dangerous. They said she should go back to the military where she belonged. Sora found her sitting alone in the cafeteria, staring at her untouched food. "Do not read those comments," Sora said gently. "Those people do not understand." "Maybe they are right," Dabin said quietly. "Maybe I do not belong here. You belong here as much as anyone else. I cannot even handle a fire drill. How can I handle being a student?" Sora sat down across from her. "You handled 3 years of war. You saved thousands of lives. One bad moment does not erase all of that." But Dabin wondered if Sora was wrong. Maybe the war had broken something inside her. Maybe she really was too damaged for normal life. The final project for Galactic Politics was worth half their grade. Students had to present solutions to real diplomatic problems. They could work in groups or alone. Dabin asked to join 3 different groups. Each group found excuses to say no. They were already full or working on something different. She knew the real reason. No one wanted the crazy veteran girl in their group. Minwoo formed the biggest group with 6 students. They chose to solve the problem with the Alteran Federation. The Alterans were a warrior species that had been causing trouble at trade meetings. "We will show how smart diplomacy works better than military force," Minwoo announced loudly in class. He looked directly at Dabin when he said it. Dabin decided to work alone. She chose the same topic as Minwoo's group. If they wanted to compare ideas, she would give them a real comparison. For 2 weeks, she researched everything she could find about the Alterans. She read diplomatic reports, trade agreements, and cultural studies. But she also remembered things the textbooks did not include. She remembered fighting alongside Alteran warriors during the Krathan attacks. She remembered how they tested human soldiers before they would trust them. She remembered their strange honor codes and their respect for individual combat skills. The presentation day arrived. Minwoo's group went first. They had prepared a beautiful slideshow with charts and graphs. Everything looked professional and academic. "The Alterans respond badly to military pressure," Minwoo explained to the class. "We should use economic sanctions and trade restrictions to force them to cooperate." His teammate Jung-soo added, "If we cut off their access to rare metals, they will have to accept our diplomatic terms." Another group member, Yeonji, spoke about cultural exchange programs. "We can send artists and teachers to show them peaceful human values." The presentation was smooth and confident. Professor Nam nodded approvingly. Students took notes and asked thoughtful questions. When it ended, everyone clapped. "Excellent work," Professor Nam said. "Very thorough academic analysis." Then it was Dabin's turn. She walked to the front of the room with no slideshow, no charts, no fancy graphics, just a simple tablet with her notes. "The Alterans will not respond to economic pressure," she began. "Their culture values personal honor more than material wealth. If you threaten their trade, they will see it as cowardice." Some students looked confused. Others seemed bored. "During the war, I fought with Alteran warriors," Dabin continued. "They judge other species by how they handle conflict. They respect strength and courage. They despise weakness and tricks." Minwoo raised his hand. "This is just military thinking again. Violence is not the answer to everything." "I am not talking about violence," Dabin replied. "I am talking about understanding how they think." She explained how Alteran leaders always fought personal duels before important meetings. It was not about hurting each other. It was about proving they were worthy of respect. If human diplomats refuse to participate in their combat rituals, the Alterans think we are afraid. They will never trust cowards. Dabin described the trading routes that connected Alteran worlds. She explained which resources they actually needed and which ones they could live without. She talked about their military structure and how decisions were made. Economic sanctions will fail because Alteran warriors see suffering as a test of strength. The harder you make their lives, the more they will resist. She finished by explaining how to approach Alteran negotiations. Send diplomats who could handle physical challenges. Show respect for their warrior traditions. Offer partnerships instead of demands. The classroom was quiet when she finished. Her presentation was simple and rough compared to Minwoo's polished performance. But something felt different. A student in the back row raised her hand. How do you know all this specific information? It was not in any of our reading materials. Because I was there, Daybin said simply. I learned it by working with them. Professor Nam looked troubled. He had to choose between academic presentation skills and real knowledge, between theory and experience, between what looked good and what was actually true. Thank you both for your presentations, he said carefully. I will announce grades next week. But Daybin could see the question in his eyes. Which answer would actually work in the real world? After the presentations, Daybin packed her tablet and prepared to leave. Most students were already discussing their weekend plans. The academic exercise was over for them. But for Daybin, it felt like another battle lost. Excuse me, said a quiet voice behind her. Daybin turned to see an alien student. The girl was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Her name tag read Kala in both Korean and Valian script. You are the human veteran, yes? Kala asked in careful Korean. Yes. What you said about my people, about the Alterans, it was correct. Daybin looked at her more closely. You are Valian. Yes. From the Kepler system. You saved my colony when I was young. Daybin felt something tight in her chest. She remembered Kepler. The burning cities, the refugee ships, children crying for their parents. I was 7 years old, Kala continued. Human soldiers came when the Krathan attacked our world. They fought so hard to protect us. Many died to save Valian families they had never met. Other students had stopped talking. They were listening to the alien girl with curiosity. My government studied human military actions for years, Kala said. Your analysis of Alteran culture matches our diplomatic intelligence reports exactly. Information that is not available in public databases. Minwoo pushed through the crowd. What are you talking about? Kala looked at him with her large alien eyes. This human understands my people better than your textbooks do. She speaks truth about how alien cultures work. She is just making things up, Minwoo said dismissively. No, Kala replied firmly. I have seen the reports. Alteran negotiations failed exactly as she predicted. Human diplomats tried economic pressure. The Alterans declared it an insult and broke off all talks. The classroom became very quiet. Students looked confused. Their perfect academic theories were being challenged by an alien who actually lived in that world. Word spread quickly through the alien exchange student community. By the next day, 3 more alien students had approached Daybin. Each one confirmed different parts of her knowledge. A Centaurian student named Vel told her that humans were still celebrated as heroes on his homeworld. Children learned songs about the brave soldiers who fought the Krathan raiders. A Draconi exchange student showed her news reports from her planet, headlines praising human military tactics and sacrifice during the war. But the validation that helped Daybin most came from an unexpected source. Professor Nam stopped her after class on Wednesday. I researched your presentation, he said quietly. I contacted my former colleagues in the diplomatic course. Daybin waited, unsure what to expect. Everything you said about the Alterans was accurate. The economic sanctions failed last month, exactly as you predicted. The diplomats are now asking military advisors for guidance on alien warrior cultures. He paused and looked directly at her. I owe you an apology. And I owe this class a better understanding of what real knowledge looks like. But not everyone was happy with this new development. Minwoo became angrier as more people began to believe Daybin. He started spreading new rumors. She has been brainwashed by alien propaganda, he told his friends. Veterans like her have been compromised by enemy psychological warfare. He convinced several students that Daybin was somehow working for alien interests, that her alien sympathy made her a security risk. Why else would aliens support her so strongly? He asked during lunch. Maybe she was captured and turned during the war. Maybe she is not really on our side anymore. The whispers started again. This time, they were more dangerous. Students began to avoid De Bin, not because they thought she was crazy, but because they thought she might be a traitor. Minwoo sensed he was losing the argument about her military record. So he changed tactics. If he could not prove she was lying about her service, he would make people question her loyalty instead. I demand she provide complete documentation of her military service, he announced in their next class. If she has nothing to hide, she should be willing to prove her claims publicly. The challenge hung in the air like a threat. De Bin knew that some details of her service were still classified. Revealing them could compromise ongoing operations and put other soldiers at risk. But staying silent would make her look guilty of Minwoo's accusations. She was trapped between protecting military secrets and protecting her own reputation. The news spread across campus like fire. A high-ranking military officer was coming to Seoul National University. Someone had contacted the Defense Ministry about a student's service record. Someone had asked for verification. De Bin knew who that someone was. She sat in her dorm room, staring at the official message on her tablet. Commander Yoon Ta-sik would arrive tomorrow to address questions about her military service. Her former commanding officer was flying across 3 star systems because of Minwoo's accusations. De Bin felt sick. She had tried to live quietly. She had tried to be just another student. But now her past was coming to campus whether she wanted it or not. The next morning, the main auditorium was packed. Word had spread through social media. Students came to see the confrontation between the alleged fake veteran and real military authority. Some came to support De Bin. Most came for the drama. Minwoo sat in the front row with his supporters. He looked confident and pleased with himself. He had forced this moment. He would finally expose De Bin as a fraud. De Bin sat in the back corner, as always. Sora sat beside her, along with Kala and the other alien students who believed in her. But they were a small group surrounded by hundreds of curious faces. Professor Nam introduced Commander Yoon when he entered the auditorium. The room fell completely silent. Yoon was not what most students expected. He was shorter than average but built like steel cable. Scars covered his face and hands. His left eye was artificial, glowing faintly blue. His uniform was simple, but every medal on his chest represented real battles. When he walked, he limped slightly from an old injury. When he looked at the crowd, students felt like he could see right through them. This man had seen things they could not imagine. I am here because someone questioned the service record of Lee De Bin, Yoon said. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. Minwoo stood up. Sir, we just want verification. Some of us have concerns about. Sit down, Yoon said calmly. Minwoo sat. Yoon moved to the center of the stage. Lieutenant Lee De Bin served under my command for 38 months. She participated in 14 major engagements against Krathan forces. Her unit was responsible for protecting civilian evacuation routes in the Outer Rim territories. He clicked a remote. A holographic display showed star maps and battle reports, official military documents that Minwoo could not call fake. Defense Station 7 was attacked by a Krathan battle fleet on March 15, 2157. 47 enemy ships against our single station. Lieutenant Lee's squad held the defensive line for 18 hours while civilian transports escaped. The display showed combat footage. De Bin recognized the scenes, but seeing them again made her hands shake. Ships exploding. Soldiers fighting in damaged corridors. Her own voice giving orders over the radio. Of the 12 soldiers in Lieutenant Lee's squad, only 3 survived that battle. Yoon continued. She carried 2 wounded squad mates to safety while under heavy fire. She refused medical evacuation until all civilians were secure. Students stared at the footage in shock. This was not the academic discussion they had expected. This was real war with real death and real heroes. Lieutenant Lee was awarded the Galactic Defense Medal, the highest honor for battlefield courage. Yoon said, The citation reads, "For extraordinary heroism in the face of overwhelming enemy forces, saving the lives of 8,312 civilian refugees through personal sacrifice and tactical brilliance." Minwoo's face had gone pale. His supporters looked uncomfortable and began shifting away from him. But Yoon was not finished. The tactics Lieutenant Lee developed at Defense Station 7 are now taught at every military academy in human space. Her innovations saved thousands of lives in subsequent battles. She is not just a veteran. She is a legend. The auditorium erupted. Students who had mocked Da Bin now stared at her with awe. The videos that had humiliated her were being deleted from social media and replaced with apologies. But Da Bin felt no victory. She saw the fear in Minwoo's eyes, the shame of the students who had believed his lies, the uncomfortable realization that they had been cruel to someone who deserved their gratitude. "One more thing," Yoon said, his voice cutting through the noise. "Lieutenant Lee did not ask for this attention. She came here to study, not to be honored. The fact that some of you questioned her service says more about you than about her." He looked directly at Minwoo. "Freedom is not free. It is paid for by people willing to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. You owe your education, your safety, and your future to soldiers like Lieutenant Lee. Remember that." Da Bin wanted to disappear. This was not how she had wanted to be accepted. After Commander Yoon left, everything changed for Da Bin, but not in the way she had expected. Students who had ignored her now wanted to be her friend. They asked for selfies and autographs. They invited her to parties and study groups. But their smiles felt fake. They respected her medals, not her as a person. Minwoo disappeared from campus for a week. When he returned, he looked smaller somehow. His confident group of friends had abandoned him. Students whispered about how he had attacked a war hero. His reputation was destroyed. Da Bin found him sitting alone in the cafeteria one Tuesday morning. He was staring at his untouched food, just like she had done weeks earlier. "Are you okay?" she asked, surprising herself. Minwoo looked up with red eyes. "Why are you talking to me? I tried to ruin your life." "Because I know what it feels like to sit alone." She sat down across from him. Other students stared and whispered. The war hero talking to her former enemy. "I am sorry," Minwoo said quietly. "I was wrong about everything. I was jealous and stupid and cruel." "Why were you jealous?" Minwoo looked ashamed. "Because you had done something real, something important. I have never done anything that mattered. My whole life has been easy because of my father's money. I felt useless next to you." Da Bin understood that feeling. She had felt useless too, just for different reasons. "You can still do something important," she said. "Your life is not over." Their conversation was interrupted by Park Jin-ho, the veteran counselor Professor Nam had mentioned. He was a quiet man with kind eyes and steady hands. "Miss Lee, do you have a moment?" Jin-ho asked. They walked to his office in the Student Services building. The walls were covered with photos of former students who had graduated and found success. "Commander Yoon told me about your situation," Jin-ho said. "He thinks you might be interested in helping other veterans." "How?" "We have 12 other veteran students on campus. Most of them are struggling with the same problems you faced. They feel isolated and misunderstood. They need someone who has been through what they are experiencing." Jin-ho showed her files of veteran students. Some were older, some younger. All had served in different conflicts. All were having trouble adjusting to civilian life. "I could introduce you to them," Jin-ho suggested. "Maybe you could share your experiences, help them understand they are not alone." Da Bin thought about her first weeks on campus, how lonely she had felt, how much it would have meant to talk to someone who understood. "Yes," she said, "I would like that." The first veteran support meeting was small, just 5 students sitting in a circle in Jin-ho's office. They were nervous and suspicious at first. Veterans learned to be careful about trusting new people. But when Dabin spoke about her struggles with fire drills and crowded rooms and civilian students who did not understand, the others began to open up too. Han Yujin had been a combat medic. He jumped every time doors slammed. Lee Sung-min had been a pilot. She could not sleep without checking all the locks twice. Park Dong-hyun had been an engineer. He built escape routes in his mind wherever he went. They shared stories about nightmares and flashbacks, about feeling guilty for surviving when friends had died, about not knowing how to talk to people who had never seen war. But they also shared strategies for coping, ways to manage stress and anxiety, techniques for staying calm in triggering situations. The hardest part is not the memories. Yujin said during their third meeting, "It is feeling like nobody understands why those memories matter." "That is why we need each other," Dabin replied. "Civilians can respect us, but they cannot really understand us. Only we can understand each other." The group grew slowly. Word spread through quiet veteran networks. More former soldiers joined their meetings. They talked about their struggles, but also about their goals. Some wanted to become teachers. Others planned to work in engineering or medicine. A few thought about staying in military service as advisors or trainers. Dabin realized that her vindication by Commander Yoon had been important. But this was more important: building a community where veterans could support each other, creating a bridge between military and civilian worlds. She was no longer fighting for her own dignity. She was fighting for all veterans who came after her. 2 years later, Dabin stood at the podium in the same auditorium where Commander Yoon had revealed her service record. But this time, she was the one speaking to new students at orientation. The auditorium was packed again. Human students sat next to alien exchange students. Veteran students sat next to civilians. The university looked different now, more diverse, more understanding. "My name is Lee Dabin," she began. 2 years ago, I was a new student just like you. I was scared and lonely, and did not know if I belonged here." In the audience, she could see familiar faces. Sora sat in the third row, now her closest friend and study partner. Kala was there too, preparing to graduate with honors in diplomatic studies. Even Minwoo was present, working as a volunteer in the Veteran Support Program. "I learned that belonging is not something you earn by proving yourself to others," Dabin continued. "Belonging is something you build by helping others feel welcome." She looked at the group of new veteran students in the front section. 12 former soldiers starting their civilian education. They looked nervous and uncertain, just like she had been. Some of you are veterans returning from military service. Some of you are civilians who have never seen combat. Some of you are from other worlds and other species. All of you belong here. Dabin's voice was steady and confident now. The scared young woman who had hidden in library corners was gone. In her place stood someone who had learned to turn her pain into purpose. The skills that make good soldiers also make good students and good citizens. Discipline helps you study. Teamwork helps you succeed. The ability to stay calm under pressure helps you handle exams and job interviews. She clicked a remote. The screen showed photos of veteran graduates working as teachers, doctors, engineers, and diplomats. Success stories from the program she had helped build. But civilian students have important skills too. You know how to think creatively. You know how to question assumptions. You know how to imagine peaceful solutions to complex problems. More photos appeared. Mixed teams of veteran and civilian students working together on projects. Alien and human students collaborating on research. The university community she had helped create. 2 years ago, I thought my war was over, Dabin said. I thought I was done fighting. But I was wrong. My real war was just beginning. She paused and looked directly at the veteran students. We are not fighting for territory or resources anymore. We are fighting for understanding. We are fighting to build bridges between different communities. We are fighting to make sure everyone feels like they belong. The audience was completely silent. Even the professors were listening carefully. This fight is harder than any military battle I ever faced. There are no clear enemies to defeat, no victory conditions to achieve. Success is measured in small moments of connection between people who seem different. Dabin thought about all the small victories over the past 2 years. The veteran student who learned to manage his anxiety. The civilian student who volunteered to help with PTSD support groups. The alien student who felt safe sharing her culture with humans. When I first came here, I wanted people to respect my military service. Now I understand that respect without understanding is meaningless. I would rather have one person truly understand my experience than have 100 people salute my medals. She looked at Minwoo, who was listening intently. Their friendship had been unexpected but genuine. He had become one of the best advocates for veteran students, precisely because he understood what it felt like to be an outsider. Your mission as students is not just to learn facts and earn degrees. Your mission is to learn from each other, to share your experiences and listen to others' stories, to build a community where everyone can contribute their unique strengths. Dabin smiled as she prepared to finish her speech. I came to this university as a soldier trying to become a student. I am leaving as a student who learned that the best way to serve your community is to help others serve theirs. The applause was long and genuine. But the real measure of success would come in the weeks and months ahead, as new students learned to support each other across all their differences. Dabin stepped down from the podium and walked toward the veteran students. Her new mission was beginning. Not fighting for her country or her dignity, but fighting for unity in a diverse galaxy. She was ready.